James Marshall Monument commemorates the discovery of gold. Taken together, these two parks are touchstones that provide vastly different perspectives on a single event that changed the course of history. Within a year or two of Marshall's discovery, the easy pickings were gone. There were only so many gold nuggets to be plucked from rivers and streams. A new generation of gold seeker turned to hard rock mining. Working in deep shafts, they used dynamite to blast and forced air to breathe. Empire Mine was the largest. It boasted an unbelievable 367 miles of tunnels, some of them sinking more than 11,000 feet below the surface. Empire Mine yielded almost 6 million ounces of gold. Like the cycle of boom and bust that was repeated throughout the Sierra, when the gold played out, the miners moved on. If there is a perfect metaphor for the cycle of boom and bust, Bodie is it. The population went from a couple of dozen prospectors in 1877 to nearly 10,000 people by 1882. When the mines played out, everybody walked away. In 1960, Bodie became a state historic park. Today, the ghost town welcomes more than 200,000 visitors each year. The discovery of gold and the rush that followed was the embodiment of an enduring California dream, pulling up stakes, heading west, and creating a new life from nothing. In 1846, a group of hardy pioneers set out for the Promised Land. Caught by an early blizzard, the Donner Party was forced to camp in makeshift shelters. Several froze to death, and a few were reduced to cannibalism.
The gold rush offered Americans a utopian statement that you could redefine yourself in California, that you could break through to something better. The Donner Party was a dystopian statement. The Donner Party said that California was also a precarious social experiment that could go awry.
Ever since the first settlers arrived by ox-drawn wagons, the Sierra Nevada stood as a formidable barrier that took weeks to cross, even in fair weather. That would change when the Transcontinental Railroad crossed Donner Summit, within eyesight of where the Donner Party met their tragic fate.
In the 1840s and 50s, California was 6 months away from the East Coast by land. Thanks to the railroad, by the 1890s, an orange picked in Riverside County could be on a table in New York 7 days later. It was one of the great revolutions of space and time in mid-19th century America.
Miwok, Donner Party, Gold Rush, Ghost Town, Railroad. Each moment a critical chapter from the mountains of California, and each chapter a distinct impression that can still be felt.
The greatest thing that they offer is their authenticity, that they are linked to a place, that you can go to those sites and you can stand on the same ground that the 49ers stood. You can run your hand over the same rocks where the Miwok Indians ground their acorn meal with pestles in the bedrock. You can take the physical resource, you can embellish it with your knowledge and exercise your imagination, put all those things together and come out with what the landscape architects like to call a sense of place.
Much has changed since Frederick Law Olmsted Jr. completed the California State Park Survey. In 1928, there were less than 5 million people living in California. Today, nearly 40 million call California home. In his survey, Olmsted recommended 125 parks that should be preserved for future generations. Today, 278 special places have been set aside as state parks, beaches, nature preserves, historic sites, and recreation areas. More than 1.5 million acres have been preserved, and they are visited by 80 million people every year.
It's not just what the Olmsteds mean to California. That's very important. But consider what they mean to the nation. Consider what they mean to the world. 187 nations, in addition to the United States of America, have national parks and equivalent reserves. The United Nations reports 102,000 separate areas set aside all over the world, 12.5% of the earth. And you can trace that all back to Yosemite, all back to California. This is the great legacy. These people have done an amazing thing for the world and for humankind.
That's exactly what Olmsted saw, the whole sense of timelessness, the sense of space, the escape from civilization, the critical importance of that. That's what we fought for, and this is why we need to be vigilant to maintain that, so that this whole connection to the past can be maintained for future generations.
When one looks at the state park system in its totality, what it really has managed to preserve is the essence of what it means to be a Californian, nothing less than that.
Although it would not become a state park until 1931, Calaveras big trees played a key role in building public support for the park idea. When the world first looked upon these giant sequoias, the impulse was to cut them down. Others looked upon the same trees with humility, realizing that they had been standing for more than 1,000 years and had every right to remain 1,000 more. Beyond this, they wanted to ensure that their children and their children's children would inherit the right to stand here too, to marvel at the giant trees, and to be reminded of their place in a larger world.